This is Michiana's breaking news and weather station. MNC. On News Talk 95.3, 101.9 FM, and 1340 AM, your MNC Nation stations.
Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday. It is September the 11th, 2024. I'm John Zimney in the MNC News Center. And the news getting started now with our top local stories on Michiana's Morning News. One child has died and another injured after the two were struck by a vehicle while on their bicycles on County Road 4.
The collision happened just before 8 o'clock Tuesday morning east of County Road 29. Elkhart County Sheriff's deputies say a Jeep Grand Cherokee driven by a 31-year-old woman from Elkhart was traveling eastbound when it struck the 7 and 13-year-old boys who were cycling in the same direction. The 7-year-old suffered a severe head injury and was airlifted to Bronson Hospital in Kalamazoo with life-threatening injuries. The 13-year-old was taken to Memorial Hospital with a non-life-threatening arm injury. Initial reports suggest the sun's glare may have impaired the driver's visibility. Morgan Hopkins, MNC News.
The sheriff's office reports that the 7-year-old child died at the hospital on Tuesday. A 57-year-old man now faces 9 years in prison for a burglary at Elkhart Hinge. This happened back in March of last year. A neighbor told the police she saw a man break in through the fence. Officers tried to pull over a vehicle matching the description, but the suspect led the officers on a pursuit before crashing and trying to flee on foot. Tony Summers was found with 4 catalytic converters, 2 of which were found to come from a truck at Elkhart Hinge. More details about the expansion and improvements of Four Winds Field. In addition to new seating and a second deck and suites, the field will sport new natural grass that will replace the 2014 turf installed under a previous agreement with the Chicago Cubs. There'll also be a new kids' fun zone and a relocated splash pad. In all, it's $48 million in improvements. A ceremonial groundbreaking took place on Tuesday. The city of South Bend has opened the application for this year's Alive grant program.
The center will offer no-cost, one-on-one financial counseling for South Bend residents and is the first of its kind in the state. The grant, awarded by the National Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, will help support the center's launch, where professionally trained FEC counselors will help those with low and moderate incomes manage their finances, pay down debt, increase savings, establish and build credit. The center will launch at temporary locations around the city later this year before its permanent home at the new Martin Luther King Jr. Dream Center opens next year. Alyssa Foster, MNC News.
New this morning on MNC, a project under Lake Michigan aiming to increase internet activity between Michigan and the rest of the world.
A broadband connection project under the lake is in the works that would lay internet cable between Chicago and Benton Harbor. WSJM reports that Peninsula Fiber Network's Middle Mile Broadband project would increase the quality and capacity of the connection between the two communities. Currently, much of that broadband connection is routed through Gary, Indiana, where multiple issues can result in lost data and network problems. A similar underwater line is being worked on between the communities of Gulliver, Beaver Island, and Charlevoix to better connect the upper and lower peninsulas. Tommy Lee, MNC News.
And it's not even Halloween yet, but we're already hearing of the first holiday hiring of the year.
Discount grocer Aldi says it's looking for 13,000 new workers at its stores and warehouses. The company, which now employs more than 49,000 workers, plans to raise starting pay to $18 per hour for store jobs and $23 for warehouse positions. Aldi's also planning to add 800 new stores in the next 5 years to the 2,400 now across the U.S. Derek Decker, MNC News.
Among the local events to commemorate the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks today, the South Bend Police Department's Honor Guard will join the South Bend Fire Department, Clay Fire, Mishawaka Police Department, and the Mishawaka Fire Department in the annual Ringing of the Bell ceremony, marking 23 years now since the terror attacks of 9/11-2001. The service will begin at 9 o'clock at St. Patrick's County Park in front of the Standing Tall Freedom Memorial. The public is welcome and encouraged to attend. Turning to Michiana's election headquarters, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has won an appeal to now be removed from the presidential ballot in Michigan.
The former independent candidate has to be removed from the state's general election ballot, according to a ruling Friday by the Michigan Court of Appeals. This reverses a Court of Claims decision earlier this week that stated minor party candidates cannot withdraw once they've been nominated at a convention, according to Bridge, Michigan. Kennedy was the nominee of the Michigan Natural Law Party. He dropped out of the race last month and endorsed former President Trump. He had been polling at roughly 5% in a recent survey of Michigan voters. Tommy Lee, MNC News.
Hoosiers heading to the polls in November will see a ballot question about amending the Indiana Constitution to update the governor's succession process.
The proposed amendment revises the line of succession if the governor resigns, dies, or becomes incapacitated. The amendment removes the state superintendent of public instruction from the line of succession. GOP State Representative J.D. Prescott authored the amendment and calls it cleanup language.
We no longer have a state superintendent of public instruction. We now have a secretary of education. And then just the fact that all of those positions in the line of succession are all elected positions.
Currently, the lieutenant governor takes over as governor, but if they're unable to serve, the General Assembly must elect a new governor from the same party within 48 hours. The proposal has passed through the legislature with little opposition and no controversy. Derek Decker, MNC News.
If you missed last night's debate, we have a quick listen back, which includes many statements from both sides. Will certainly be talked about on the talk shows today.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. World leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
Ooh, a whirlwind of opinions there, some back and forth, and a lot to uncover and talk about today on the talk shows, so starting with Michiana's Morning News. By the way, Harris wants to go another debate round with the former president. Her campaign announced after last night's debate a desire for a second meetup with Trump before the election. Trump says he might agree to a second debate, but says it'd have to be hosted by a fair network. Both campaigns have agreed on October 1st to debate between the vice presidential candidates, and that'll be on CBS. New this morning on MNC, Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita is leading a multi-state lawsuit against the Clean Power Plan 2.0, a climate change initiative from the Biden administration. The lawsuit argues that the EPA's plan will lead to job losses, strain the power grid, increase utility costs, and harm the economy. The rule requires coal-fired power plants to capture 90% of carbon emissions using technology that is proven not to work. And Michigan and Indiana are among the states that have the biggest gamblers in the U.S.
Gambling, whether on sports or in a casino, has become common nationwide. Legal U.S. Poker Stars has conducted research that looks at specific factors, including the search volume for gambling in casinos per month, the number of casinos in each state, the estimated spending on gambling, and the estimated percentage of income spent. Michigan finished 9th on the list with more than $450 in spending per capita at 26 casinos. Indiana was 10th, spending just over $535 with 13 casinos. Both states had an index score over 21. No surprise, Nevada topped the list in all categories with an index score of just under 95. Victor Garcia, MNC News.
Cast your vote with confidence. Check out the candidates and their platforms from all the hot races before the November election. You can do so at the all-new HoosierVote.com. It's sponsored by Shield Exteriors and by Burton's Laundry.
Mostly sunny skies again today. Afternoon high temperatures are expected to be in the middle 80s. Skies will be a little bit hazy at times today as well. As we head into tonight, we see mostly clear skies. We drop down to only 60. And then for tomorrow, partly sunny skies. High temperatures right around 87. I'm WSBT 22 Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
You can get the top local news delivered to your email twice each day. To get signed up, go to 953mnc.com and click where it says On Demand.
Podcasts by Federated Media.